how do I build strength? Oh, well, what you do is this thing called progressive resistance overload. Oh, what does that mean? It means you go into a gym and you lift a weight and you'll find it hard, and then you come back tomorrow, the next day, and you do similar, and then over time that 5 kilo dumbbell is not heavy anymore, and now you do the 7, and the 7's now easier than the 5 was. Like, all the weights are the same, but you've changed. So your experience of the weight is now different because you are now strong. You were weak, you implemented this intervention, you used these tools to build strength, and now you are strong. So when you now have to lift a weight, be that a literal weight or a metaphoric weight, you are now capable because you did a hard thing and kept doing a hard thing.
Welcome to another episode of Success with Purpose, where we help mentor you into becoming a more successful version of yourself. We do this through giving you access to mentors you typically would never have the opportunity to connect with. We explore their journeys, their experiences, their life-changing events, their fields of expertise, and most importantly, their purpose. My name is Harry Goldberg, husband to an incredible woman, father of 2 amazing daughters, host, interviewer, and interrogator of this podcast. And now, just before we learn from yet another exceptional guest, if you find value from these conversations, please make sure to like and subscribe below, leave a review. It really does make a difference. And of course, share it with someone else who's going to find value. Now, listen in, pay attention, take some notes, enjoy. Let's begin. Welcome.
Harry, how are you?
Exceptional today, especially with this conversation coming up. I mean, I'm looking forward to this.
Well, we'll see what happens. Could be a big disappointment. Don't get too... Set the bar low. I always say, under promise, over deliver.
Right, under promise to yourself as well. Is that the way it works?
Well, we'll see where we go. No, I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.
All right, so for the listeners, Craig Harper is one of Australia's leading presenters, writers, educators in the areas of health, high performance, resilience, self-management, leadership, corporate change, communication, stress management, addiction, and personal transformation. Since 1982, you've worked as an exercise scientist, a corporate speaker, consultant, university lecturer, AFL conditioning coach, radio host, TV presenter, writer, successful business owner as well. So we've got a lot to discuss, my friend.
Yeah, I'm very old, dude. That's why that bio is so long. I'm old.
Before we dive in, how do you define success?
It's different things for different people. Like when we go, what is success? It's like we're saying it's a thing. What is the thing that it is? I don't think it's a thing. I think it's a bunch of things. I think it's different across the spectrum. I think for you, success might be one thing. For somebody else, that's failure, or that's not important. And I think what is success for me over time will vary too. So I think success is a dynamic construct. I don't think it's always the same thing, but I think if we wanted to talk about what is the state that we hope success will bring us, the internal state, it would be something in the vicinity of joy and fulfillment and calm and happiness. Yeah, so, I mean, while none of us... It's a really interesting question. We could do an hour on what is success because, like I said, we were chatting off air. So one of the things I do is corporate speaking. So I'm in front of corporate audiences about 100 to 130, 40 times a year, depends on the year. And for me, it's great. It's fun. I enjoy it. It's part of my... It's part of my job, and it's an indicator of success because I get paid pretty well to talk to great people. But for somebody else standing in front of a corporate audience or any public audience to talk for an hour or a day would be terrifying, would be the opposite of success. It would be the thing that they don't want. You know, it's like one of the top 2 or 3 fears, I think, is public speaking. But for me, it's something that gives me joy and excitement, purpose and connection. So the long-winded answer is I don't have a single answer. I think it's something that changes over time, and we might say, what is success with health? What is success with business? What is success with relationships? If we had to pick a lifestyle that was optimal for you, what does that look like? So, yeah, I think it's lots of things is my very evasive answer.
And you're saying that it's different for different people because it's just so dynamic. And what you said is that it's probably changed for you over your life as well. So not only is it dynamic in the sense that everyone might have a different definition, but it sounds like you're also saying that everyone has a different definition based on the different times and stages that they are in their life.
Yeah, I think so. And it's like we'll have an idea, I think, all of us, if we had, one thing that we want to achieve, or say, well, I'd really like, whatever it is, I'd like to earn 300K a year, which is just a measurable goal, right? Someone goes, well, for me, success or an indicator of success would be earning 300 grand or 100 grand or 50 or whatever it is, doesn't matter. But it's rare that somebody gets to the top of that mountain, the 300,000K mountain, or the running a sub 3-hour marathon mountain, or the doing a PhD mountain. It's rare that somebody gets to the top and then they say, I'm good now. I'm completely content. I don't need anything else. I am successful. I have ticked the box. Invariably what happens is we get to the top of the mountain. We go, oh, look at that mountain over there. Or when we get into that, you think about what is success in the context of the world and society and culture. Well, the messaging around success is it's about what you have and what you earn and what you own and what you drive and where you live. And in 2024, your personal brand and, your likes and your followers and all of these very observable things. But I've worked with lots of what we would call successful people, in inverted commas, who at the same time as being what appeared to be successful, they had the appearance of success, but they didn't have the experience of it. So in the middle of their successful life, they were medicated for anxiety and depression and sleeplessness and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I think it is, when I'm working with people, counseling, coaching, chatting, I'm more interested in their internal world than their external world. I'm more interested in the unseen than the seen. I'm more interested in what's happening within than without. Like what's happening without, situation, circumstance, environment, job, money, all those things matter, of course. They're part of the human experience. But earning $1 million and driving a Ferrari and living in a mansion and being jacked and having abs and being pretty or handsome or ticking all these boxes doesn't necessarily even correlate with happiness, let alone guarantee it. So I think it's that, let's dig a bit deeper. It's like, well, what's the thing that you want? Oh, I want 300 grand, or I want that car, or I want that job, or I want that house, or I want that title. Cool. Then the next thing is, well, what do you think that will do for you? Oh, well, it'll take pressure off and cool. What will that do for you? Because what we're really trying to get to is, what's the internal driver? Like, what is it that you really want? What do you think that job or that title or that money or that body or that six-pack or that outcome will do for you on a deep level? Because it's that deep level driver that's the thing we really want,
I imagine a lot of the time when you're engaging with clients on that topic and you start to go, okay, the appearance of success versus the experience. Okay, what's the actual experience that you want to have as a result of that appearance that you want? The tangible thing, the thing which is without, and then what do you actually want within as a result of that? Well, you want to experience that. Okay, what do you want from that, or what are you hoping that experience will give for you? And what are you hoping that will do for you? And then what do you hope that you're actually going to achieve as a result of experiencing that? What do you actually want?
Yes.
Which would probably often go down to something relatively consistent, like I just want to be happy, I just want to enjoy my life, I just want to be fulfilled or content. But then what do people usually do then? Like, obviously there's one thing in terms of what you then do with your clients, but what do people do if they're not being guided? If they go, okay, well, I want that because when I have that, then I'm going to be happy. And they've got that mountain, right? You mentioned the 300K salary or the sub 3 marathon. What happens next usually for people?
Well, I think people get to the point where either on their own or maybe with some assistance, they realize that the thing that they wanted or the thing that they'd hoped to achieve, once they achieve it, doesn't necessarily create the experience that they thought it might, which is not good or bad. It's just human. But I think also, Harry, what most people want is, which is pretty universal, is people want to be calm. People don't want anxiety. Like right now more than, and obviously you and I live in very first world, very comfortable, very privileged Australia, right? So we're just lucky. We were born lucky, right? But I think that I've never seen more anxiety, more depression, more sleeplessness, more overthinking. And maybe that's just my experience. But I think there's evidence to suggest that, mental health is going through the roof in terms of people with mental health issues, which is not a judgment, it's an observation. And so when I sit down with people, quite often what they really want, once we get through all the observable, measurable, KPI-based stuff, is they just don't want the anxiety. They don't want to be worried. They don't want to be so fearful. They don't want to be unhappy. They don't want to be disconnected, sad, lonely, depressed. It's like Simon Sinek talks about, our what now, what's the thing that you want? I want this and that. And then there's the why. And the why is your actual goal. That's the driver. It's like, I want to earn this money, but why do you want that? Oh, because I want less pressure and stress. I want to be able to put my kid in a good school. I want to be able to not drive a heap of crap car. I want to be able to sleep and not lay awake at night worrying about bills. So it's really the thing that we want, the immediate goal, in this case, say money. When we just use the money as an example, it's actually the conduit to the thing that we really want. It's what do I think the money or the title or the outcome or the house or whatever, what do I think that will actually do for me? Yeah.
Yeah. Which is interesting. So from my experience with financial coaching, as well as financial advice and life coaching, it usually, like when talking about money, people are like, I want this much money. It's like, well, why do you want that much money? So I can get these things. Why do you want those things? Because then I can have other things like more friends or live in the right place. And why do you want those things? Well, because it's going to change the way that I feel and I want to be happy. It seems like people keep coming back to that. It's like they don't want the money because of how it'll make them feel. They want the money because how they think the things that the money will give them will make them feel.
Correct. I was just going to say it's an exercise in self-awareness. So my PhD is largely in self-awareness, but it's really why do I think this way? Why do I behave this way? Why do I want that thing? Why do I really want that thing? And by the way, for all your listeners, like having a great house and car and job and making lots of dough, it's not a bad thing, of course, but it's not necessarily the magic pill. It's not the emotional and psychological happiness magic pill that we think it might be. And also, I think part of the human experience that we need to be okay with is some days I'm going to have crap days. Some days I'm going to be a bit sad, lonely, disconnected, emotional, anxious, and that's all right. That doesn't make me bad or flawed or broken. That makes me normal and human. I mean, I have crap days and I do this for a job. I analyze human behavior and do I have bad days? Yes. And are we allowed to swear on this show or not really?
Go for it.
I fuck things up constantly, and do I get things wrong and do I slip into ego and do I slip into self-doubt and overthinking? Of course. And it's not because I'm bad or broken, it's because I'm a human. It's like, can somebody who knows how to train and how to eat well, can they be out of shape? Of course. Because it's a bit about what we know and it's a lot about what we do with what we know. So, and I always say that, with my own show and whoever's show I'm on, I'm saying, so Harry and I are going to talk for an hour and a half or thereabouts, and it's an hour and a half of theory, but theory's not action. So it's listening is good and understanding is good and maybe having a few light bulbs and a few moments of awareness and self-realization, all great. But really the value in any information, idea, inspiration, insight, the value for us, the real value comes in the application. It comes in the operationalizing of that thing. So not what do I know, but what will I do with what I know so that I can create real shift on planet me.
Okay. And we'll talk a lot about the actions that you've taken in your journey as well. We'll dive into your journey and maybe start from the beginning and see where it goes. But just quickly before we get there, you were saying that you've kind of been alluding to this idea that the real definition of success is based on a state of an internal state of experience, like the experience that you have, calm, joy, a sense of happiness or connection or excitement or whatever it is that you're really driving towards. But then you were also saying that the definition of success could change for you in your life based on relationships or based on health or business, career or finances or whatever else it is that you're actually focusing on.
Yeah.
Am I right to say that in each of those areas, people are hoping for a different feel or a different internal experience? Or is it a specific underlying core experience that people are hoping for, which would actually make them feel and live successful, that each of those different areas in our lives would point towards?
Yeah, I think a little bit of both. I think also that, by the way, there's, when I talk about that internal place of peace and joy and calm and fulfillment and excitement and creativity and love and all of that, as along with pain and frustration and all of those negative emotions, it's not discounting, our external world, our physical, practical, three-dimensional world. And there's nothing wrong with, it's like, I've worked with lots of successful people who you would think, wow, they are famous, they are making lots of dough, they are whatever, they're attractive, they're popular, they're loved. So therefore, they are successful, therefore they are happy. And the truth is often not. Often not. Now, that's not to say that their money causes misery. Of course, they may or may not be correlated. But I think when we are driven to achieve certain outcomes because we think that outcome will produce some kind of internal shift, that is not always true once we get there. So I think it's like I have a podcast. I want lots of people to listen to it. When I go and do a talk, I want people to enjoy it. I want people to say that was great. It doesn't mean they always do that. I want to create good outcomes. I want my business to make money. All of these very normal things. I want my car to run. I want my mum and dad to be healthy. They're in their 80s. So there's all these very real world practical things. And of course, there is a big correlation between, it's all well and good to say money's not the issue. Well, that's kind of bullshit. If you're making no money, then money's a big issue. And if you're really struggling financially, then more income will definitely impact your stress and anxiety levels. And, if you can make more money, that's going to alleviate that to a point. But I think it's this, this constant human dynamic of straddling our internal and external world, seen and unseen. So life happens around us and to us, but kind of living happens within us. Like when I was 32 or 3, Harry, I had 5 businesses, I had 3 gyms, I had 2 other health fitness businesses, I had 110 staff or something at that time. All of my businesses were making money. I was writing for the Herald Sun in Melbourne. I was making good dough. I was in good shape. I was all of these things. I was ticking all of these boxes. And every night I would go to bed and wake up 10 times, stressed, anxious, overthinking, worrying. I would have a pad by my bed on the side table that I would write notes in so that I could then forget about it and try and sleep. In the morning, I'd often wake up with pages of notes. So despite the appearance of success, my experience was something quite different. And again, that's just a personal story. That's not the same for everyone, And I think it's trying to kind of, it's like when we meet someone, let's say we meet someone who's earning 40 grand a year and driving a 20-year-old car and wearing, $5 t-shirt and $5 shorts. But that person is joyful and happy and calm and content and lives in a state of equanimity, being the calm in the chaos. But most people would not look at that person and go, wow, they're successful, I want to be like them, because of the $5 shorts and t-shirt and the 20-year-old car. We idolize money. We idolize stuff. We put assets and bank balances and accolades up on a pedestal, which I don't think is the best idea.
Let's dive into your journey, and then we'll circle back to, and throughout your journey, we can focus on how you were feeling this definition of success, or how you were identifying success and what was driving you in each of those times throughout your journey. Maybe start earlier on. Give the listeners a bit of background as to where you grew up, what your upbringing was like, and kind of how you started on the journey towards where you already gave a prelude to of being miserable in your 30s.
Yeah. So I grew up mostly in Latrobe Valley in rural Victoria. I was born in Ballarat. in also rural Victoria, although it's quite a big town. And I was a morbidly obese kid. I was an only child. Mum and dad, great, but mum and dad always busy and working, but it was just a different time. And so I would go to school, and on the way, when I would get home from school, I would be the only one there. I'd let myself in from about probably 7 or 8 years of age. In the country, it's relatively safe. So I'd let myself in, and I would eat all the food I could get my hands on because I was a foodie. And then mum would come home later and cook dinner, and we'd all sit down, mum, dad and I, and I'd eat another meal. So, you know, it was actually a good childhood. I had lots of great friends, and I probably copped, I definitely copped some flack for being a big kid. So my name at school from when I was about, 9 years old till I finished school, most people called me Jumbo because I was morbidly obese. Even when I lost a lot of weight, which I did when I was 14, 15, I went from 95, at 14 years of age, I was probably about 95 kilos, and at 15 years of age, I was 60 kilos or just over. So I lost a lot of weight. So that was always an interesting part of my life, is how I looked, is how much I weighed and how I felt about how I looked, and how others felt or expressed opinions about how I looked. And so that was really an interesting part of my journey, is dealing with negativity and dealing with shitty self-esteem and self-worth, and looking for acceptance and love and connection through what I looked like. And for better or worse, you know, when I lost a whole lot of weight and I went from being very fat to very fit, and, you know, not interested in working out to working out all the time, and then eventually becoming an exercise scientist later on, and all of those things, and owning gyms. But at that point in my life, for better or worse, I got a lot of validation and acceptance and approval through looking good. And so that's not always a great lesson to learn. And so then I became, you know, as a young kid, as a teenager, very obsessed with fitness, health, nutrition, muscles, being lean, what I looked like, what people thought of me. And I was, you know, this wildly insecure teenager who always wanted approval and connection and love and acceptance. And, you know, as it turned out for me, I did a lot of that, or pursued a lot of that through the physical kind of stuff, you know, what I look like and how good I am at sport and how far and how fast I can run, or how many of this or that I can do, or how I compare to the other kids at this task or skill or sport. And so you know, when you are somewhat socially disconnected or isolated, and then you do a thing, and then that thing creates a new dynamic on planet You. Like all of a sudden, wow, people are noticing me. I'm 15. I have a girlfriend. This is crazy. Somebody likes me. People want me to be in their group. I'm not getting picked last for every sporting team. I'm getting picked in the first few now. All of those things kind of mold your thinking around, you know, how do I move forward, you know, and how do I build relationships and rapport, and what do I need to do to be liked and loved, you know. And a lot of that for me came out of, as is evident, you know, insecurity and self-doubt and a bit of self-loathing.
Your definition of success was going to be super fit and healthy, and everyone likes you, and people are picking you for the teams, and people are wanting you to be around, like they're wanting to have you around, as opposed to calling you Jumbo and not really caring too much, right?
Well, I think that, you know, who wants to be rejected? Yeah. Nobody, yeah.
No one, right? Oh, maybe you get why. So there are some people you want to be rejected by, and then that's quite a relief. But no, generally speaking, people want to be included wherever they go. So that was your way throughout school, and then you continued on. You went studying sports science, and you made a whole career out of this. Did that pattern, which I guess started around 14, 15, continue all the way to your 30s? Yeah,
it did. And it's funny, like people who have real issues with their body, you know, body dysmorphia, where you're in good shape but you think you're not in good shape, or you think you look a certain way but in reality you don't, or just that whole process of trying to be good enough through physical expression, you know, where you confuse my body with myself. And for a long time, and for many people, you know, it's like the way that they can get approval or a version of love, in inverted commas, is to be attractive to someone, or what they think is attractive. Yeah, so for me, those ingrained habits of like being very specific with my eating and my training, they turn from a healthy kind of pursuit into something of an unhealthy obsession. And yeah, that took me a long time to really nail that. And for me, probably my biggest challenge, Harry, was always food. Because I would, you know, food was like I've never had beer, I've never been drunk or high, I've never had alcohol, I've never had drugs. So my food of choice, my drug of addiction was food. So I was always battling, you know, my relationship with food, because I always wanted to eat what I didn't need, you know. And it took me until I was probably in my 30s to kind of be really honest and self-aware and around why do I do the stuff that I do? Why do I have such, you know, I spent my whole life trying to be disciplined and trying to white knuckle it and trying to stay in this self-control paradigm, and it really doesn't work, or at the very least it might work somewhat, but it's exhausting. So yeah, that was something that, and it sounds silly, and if you don't have food issues or body image issues, which if you don't, well done, carry on. But if you do have food issues and body image issues and self-esteem, I don't feel good enough, I don't look good enough, which was very much me, it's the intellectual kind of theory around it ain't the same as the experience, being in the middle of the experience. It's like, you know, when somebody's worried and someone comes up to them, Harry, and says, "Oh, don't worry." It's like, that is literally the dumbest advice ever. Because telling someone who's worried not to worry is like telling a tall person not to be tall. It's like, well, that doesn't help. That's not a strategy. So, yeah, so I had lots of issues. That's where my curiosity around the human experience, like, why am I like this? Like literally my first project and my ongoing project has been myself. Like, why the fuck do I think like this? Why do I respond like this? Why is this my reality and it's not their reality? How come they don't have the same story I have? Not better or worse, just different. Yeah, I was very curious around that subjective experience in the middle of an objective reality.
Which is fascinating, especially when you're talking about your body, because from the age of 14 as an adolescent all the way through to your mid-30s, your body changes quite a bit throughout all of that. So then your nutritional needs, and then the exercise needs, the types of exercises, and everything you're doing to try and have this perfect body image would all be changing throughout that time as well. So it wouldn't be you get it right and then you're set, and you know what you got to eat, and you know what exercise you got to do, and it's all set. It'll just keep changing all the time, which would have just been chaos for you.
Yeah, it's a constant adaptive process. And the thing is, too, that like you've got to keep in mind that, so there's this thing called instant gratification. We all know what that is. So, you know, I'm not so much these days, but I pretty much used to be a cheesecake addict, or anything that was, you know, and I could have some cheesecake. And it's, you know, the thing that people don't realize is, like, if you're, say, a gambler and you're addicted to gambling, or you're addicted to alcohol, or addicted to drugs, invariably it produces the same biochemical reaction in your brain, which is dopamine, which is that feel good. You know, I've had some booze, I've put a bet on, I've had a joint, or, you know, whatever your drug of choice. I use the term drug in inverted commas. Whatever your drug of choice
media,
is,
Netflix, porn, whatever, 100%,
right? 100%.
Okay.
That's gonna make you. The reason that we do it is because it makes us feel fucking amazing in the moment. Like, nobody gets addicted to something that feels shit, right? And so for me, I would eat what is essentially junk food, and it would taste like heaven to me. And I know people are probably rolling their eyes now. I get it. and it would make me feel temporarily amazing because it just was taste bud nirvana. It produced some dopamine, and now I'm in this temporary euphoric state of whatever. And that's the same with when someone places a bet. If they're a gambler, it's exciting. It's doing all these things. If somebody has a beer, it's like a glass of heaven. You know, I mean, this is, and trying to navigate life when there are so many things that are so accessible, but also perhaps so toxic and destructive for us. And also it's figuring out how you are as an individual. It's not like gambling's bad, but it's bad for some people. You know, you place the odd bet on a whatever, fine. It's not like cake is bad, but it's probably not a door that I should open, because if I open the cake door, I'm not going to come out of the cake room for 3 weeks, right? So it's trying to figure out what is the best operating system for me. Not what is the global solution to this issue, but not on a macro, but on a micro level. What's the best operating system for Harry Goldberg when it comes to food? Or for Harry Goldberg when it comes to exercise or managing money or doing life? Or, you know, as a husband, are you a husband? I should have asked that.
Yeah, husband.
Yeah, so
to young kids.
Awesome. So as a husband and dad, how do I be great at that? Do I want to be great at that? You know, what's my optimal operating system? And I think it's all around individual values and all around who we want to be and how we want to be. And, you know, you figure out what are the things that for me are important, what are my values, and then how do I build a life that is a reflection of those values?
Okay, and so I just want to ask a question, because I can imagine a few listeners thinking it right now.
Sure.
They're hearing you talk about how eating cheesecakes for you is absolute nirvana, but they think about themselves going on social media and they're like, yeah, maybe I'm getting a bit of dopamine, but it doesn't feel like bliss. It doesn't feel incredible. All I'm doing is looking at other people's lives. Yeah. But I keep doing it either way. I still seem addicted to it, but it's not the bliss that you're talking about. It's not I'm in nirvana and it's amazing, it's incredible, but they still find themselves continuing to do it. Much of the time, probably because it's just dampening the negative experience or the stress or the anxiety that they have in other parts of their life.
Yes.
Is that still the same form of addiction that you're referring to, or is it something else?
It's in the ballpark. It's anything that, like, most people will tell you at some stage that they use USE in inverted commas, whatever it is that they use, whether it's social media or dope or cigarettes or booze or porn, to get out of pain, to get out of some kind of state that they don't want to be in. And when I'm scrolling and when I'm getting likes and when I'm getting people giving me positive comments or feedback, I feel good and my focus has shifted and I'm not thinking about the crap that is my life at this point in time, or when I'm high or when I'm drunk or when it shifts me out of that emotional, psychological and biochemical place that I was in. And I think, you know, people wouldn't keep scrolling on social media if there wasn't an upside for them. So while there's stuff that can break their heart or send them into a spiral because somebody gave them a comment that they didn't like, or they read something that doesn't align with their beliefs or whatever, people don't keep coming back for no reason. And look, I'm no guru in this space, but people are getting some need met, and whether or not that's a healthy need or an unhealthy way to get that need met is another question. But I know even somebody like me who is fascinated with all of this and is literally, you know, in my 5th year of a doctorate in neuropsychology, I can still go down rabbit holes of, you know, if it's something that, you know, if I get onto YouTube and I start looking at motorbike reviews, because I'm a motorbike person, and then I might stick my head up an hour later and it feels like 4 minutes. I'm like, where did that go? So, you know, we're all susceptible to that stuff.
Okay. And you made reference specifically to instant gratification. What's the alternative, or what's the opposite as a result of not pushing for instant gratification, of choosing the right actions that aren't for instant reward? Yeah.
So delaying gratification is one of the key attributes of people who can achieve over the long term, because it means for right now, I'm going to say no to that thing that would give me momentary pleasure, because I know that if I keep saying yes to that instant gratification, I'm going to wake up in a minute and it's going to be 2029 and I'm not going to be, 30 anymore. I'm going to be 35 or whatever it is. So our ability to be able to say no, and it's because what we're trying to do too, I think anyway, is we're trying to build resilience. We're trying to be the person who can, I know that this thing would be fun in the moment, but it's probably, and it doesn't matter. By the way, I'm not saying don't eat a pizza, don't have a beer, don't have cake, don't have a punt. Of course I'm not. I'm saying think about what the impact of that particular habit or practice is on planet you. And if you can eat a bit of what we would call junk or, not high quality food, and you can do some of those things which are kind of, more about pleasure and fun, and for the most part, you're mentally, emotionally, and physically healthy and fit, then carry on. But it's really about what am I doing in my life that's not working? In terms of who I want to be and how I want to be, what's the thing that I am doing which doesn't align with that? What's the thing that I'm doing which is more towards the destructive end of the scale than the productive end of the scale? And it might be spending 4 hours a day on, social media. It might be getting, offended 32 times a day because you're looking to be offended. When you look to be offended, you're going to find offense everywhere. And there are some people that I know that go through horrible shit, and in the middle of the horrible shit, they are fine because they create their own experiences. And this whole, for better or worse, we live in a climate now where, and I know I'm kind of diverting the conversation a bit, but where if I talk to 100 people in a room and I say the word elbow and someone's offended by the word elbow, then apparently I'm offensive because I said elbow, despite the fact that 99 people are not offended. And so now we are catering to the one. And it doesn't work, and it's not going to work over time, which is not to say that offense is not real or that there are no offensive things. It's just to say that at some stage we also need to take some level of personal responsibility about our own feelings. Like, it's not your job, Harry, to manage my feelings, and it's not my job to manage yours. And when you spend your life getting offended and pointing the finger and saying this person, that organization is the problem, then we're never looking in the mirror and saying, okay, honestly, what part of the problem am I? And I think, on Planet Me, for example, on Planet Craig Harper, more than half of my problems, probably more than 3/4 of my problems, are self-created. Or at the very least, I play quite a role in them. And it's not so much about what's going on, but perhaps my reaction or my story. And when you confuse your story or your reality with the reality, it gets tough.
Let's continue with your journey. After school, you went to uni. You were still obsessed about fitness and the like. You were off studying in that area.
Yeah, no, not exactly. So you're right, but I went to uni later. So I just started working in gyms, and I won't bore everyone, but I'd been working in gyms for a couple of years, and I ended up running a gym. So I'm 21 or 2. I'm managing a gym in Hampton in Melbourne. I've managed a few actually by then. So I probably had reasonable leadership skills, not too much else though. And I was running a gym. I was working in pubs at night. I was doing security 3 nights a week, getting punched in the face for $10 an hour. So that was a milestone. And a guy came into the gym that I was working at. His name is Max. I was 23. It was 1986. I was 23, and we started chatting, and he wanted me to train him. So obviously, 1986 is 38 years ago, so nearly 4 decades ago. And at that time, there were no personal trainers in Australia, or if there was no personal training industry anyway. There was no personal training centres, there was no course, there was no program, accreditation, insurance. Anyway, so I started working with this guy one-on-one and 3 days a week. And then, I'm just doing this thing. I don't even know if I called it personal training. And then a friend of him asked me to do the same. I'm like, all right. So now I'm doing 3 hours a week with Max and 3 hours with this other dude. But the interesting thing, Harry, was I think I was earning $12 an hour as a gym instructor. And I was charging Max $100 for 3 sessions, which is give or take $33. And $33 an hour working in a gym in 1986 was like unicorn money. I'm like, I am rich. I am the richest, like for me, that was huge money because I didn't come from wealth, right? And yeah, that just kind of grew. And I ended up training a whole bunch of people. And I ended up 3 years later opening the first personal training center in Australia. So 1990, so that was 4 years maybe, I opened my first center, which was a commercial standalone facility. Then I opened another one and another one and another one. And then, I wrote the first course with a friend of mine who had a registered training organization. So we wrote the first accreditation, the first course. And that grew, and I ended up over 25 years employing over 500 trainers, had 4 centers over time. And at our busiest, we were doing over 1,600 sessions a week, not a month or year, a week of personal training. Wow. And so it was a big business, and I employed lots of people. I got lots of things wrong. I got a few things right. Ended up working with professional sporting teams, worked with St Kilda in the AFL, of course, and Melbourne Phoenix and Melbourne Vixens in the National Netball League. A bunch of others. I've worked with Collingwood in the National Netball League, and a bunch of Olympians, winter and summer Olympians, and blokes in prison and the general public. And so it was a crazy ride. And I actually didn't go to university until I was 36. I did my first degree at 36. So yeah.
You said So just to quickly jump in before we continue, you said you got a lot of things wrong and you got a few things right. What were some of the key things you got wrong?
Oh, nearly everything. Pick something. So the one thing that I had going for me when I started my first business was I was probably a reasonably good communicator. I think I was a decent human being. I really wanted people to succeed. I wasn't all about money. And it's funny, I think if you have a business and you're all about money, you're less likely to make money. That's just, that's an aside. But so I wasn't a great businessman. I didn't know how to have a conversation with a lawyer or an accountant or a real estate agent. I was probably a little bit of a people pleaser. I wanted people to like me. I found it hard sometimes to draw the distinction between being someone's friend and being someone's boss. So that was problematic. Like being I wasn't a bad leader, but not a great leader. So I needed to figure out how to do that well. And of course, not everyone responds to the same leadership style. So you need to be adaptable and flexible and aware. Just hiring, firing, like coping. I worked a lot of hours just trying to manage me. Whereas, I didn't have any balance. I would get to work, get to the gym at 4:30, clean the floors, clean the mirrors, vacuum, clean the toilets, set everything up. People would get there by 5 o'clock. I'd train people from 5. I started employing people. There's literally no qualifications at this point. And I'm employing trainers. So I'm teaching people, people who train and people who understand, but still, nonetheless, not accredited because there is no course, there is no accreditation. So I'm making it up as I'm going by teaching these people how to be a trainer while training my own clients, while trying to run a business, while trying to understand what is marketing, what is branding, how do I let people know that I exist and what we do. Like I spent my life for the first 5 years of personal training explaining to people what it is, and people are like, that's not going to last. That's what? So people pay what? So what do you like? Their understanding, a lot of people's understanding was people would come in and give me money and I would literally watch them train and then they'd go. I'm like, well, there's a bit more to it than that. But essentially, yeah, they come in, they do the work. I tell them what to do. They give me money. People are like, oh, they might do that for a bit, but that nobody's going to do that long term, you know. And it's funny, since then, it's just proliferated. You know,
people need more accountability, right?
Well, you know, yeah.
Yeah.
Some are self-directed and some are really independently motivated. But some, you know, structure, organisation, accountability, process, having something of a cheer squad, for a lot of people, that's a really good, you know, protocol.
Yeah. And what did you mean when you said you spent many hours trying to manage me?
Me trying to manage me?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, all the emotional stuff, you know, it's like I felt like and have felt like an imposter a lot of my life. Like, why would people listen to me? I'm just an ex-fat kid from Latrobe Valley. Like, why am I, you know, even talking to you, I'm like, is this interesting for people? Is there, you know, I'm like, is this any good? And I don't know. Like, for me, a bit of imposter syndrome, bit of self-doubt, bit of insecurity, a little bit, not a lot. But for me, even now, I like it because it keeps me grounded. I don't get ahead of myself. Like, I don't think I'm special. I don't think I'm gifted. I don't think, you know, I don't have great genetics. I'm not a genius. I'm not a brilliant academic. I'm just somebody who tries really hard and doesn't easily give up. So I think I'm good at, even though I'm not hugely talented or brilliant, I'm probably pretty good at using what I've got. I'm probably pretty good at optimizing it. But, you know, self-management is the ever-present challenge, I think, for all, you know, managing my mind, managing my emotions, managing my fear, managing my words and actions and reactions, you know, trying to have a level of, you know, objective awareness around, you know, the Craig experience for others. My PhD is on a thing called meta-accuracy, and meta-perception, which is literally understanding what it's like being around you for others, you know. And when you're a coach or a teacher or a mentor or whatever, I could say one thing where my intention is to encourage or support someone, but because they don't live in my thoughts or my intentions, their experience of my good intention might be negative. You know, when you think, I don't know how many people listen to your show, but let's just say, whatever, 10,000 people listen to this show, well, that's 10,000 personalities. Even though you and I are in the middle of the same conversation, you and I are not having the same experience. Yeah. And so trying to understand not only how I think and how I operate and why I do the stuff that I do and why I overthink or underdo and all that stuff, but also simultaneously being aware that, well, Harry's not like me. Harry isn't me, not better or worse. He just ain't me. So that's why I go, can I swear on this show? Because I swear on my show all the time. And I don't do it for effect. That's just how I talk. But I realize that for some people, to say the word fuck is just like saying the word and or elbow. For somebody else, it's a bit amusing. And for someone else, it's highly offensive. Because it's not about the word, it's about the individual response. And so I have to understand the individual variability of every single person that I interact with. Or at the very least, I need to be aware that that exists, because of course someone is going to be offended. You know, I have thousands of people every day listen to my show, and of course someone's going to send me an email today and tell me I'm a dickhead or I'm wrong. Of course, it's like a statistical inevitability, and I don't blame them. And sometimes I write back and I go, you're right, I was a dickhead. Have a good day. Thanks for your feedback.
We're gonna. I think we'll need to circle back to this. I'm gonna put a pin in this part of the conversation because I think it's exceptionally valuable to focus on how we develop that skill. That's a valuable skill. But let's stick back to your journey. You were learning all these lessons, and you kind of got through it all because of the benefits above the costs of your imposter syndrome, and then your sense of stickability. Right, being able to kind of just keep using what you got and keep at it. And that got you to this point you were mentioning in your early or mid 30s where you had a few businesses and you were doing a whole bunch of stuff and you were successful on the outside, but you're mentioning that you were quite miserable inside. Your inner experience was rather horrific or unideal. Tell me more about what helped you realize that, and what was the instigator to help you change.
I had an epiphany moment, and this story might answer it. So I kind of, I got to the point where I had successful businesses, had a girlfriend that was lovely at the time. I was in good shape. I think I'd written my first book. Things were good. But for me, and again, somebody else could have been in my situation and very happy. So it wasn't about the situation, it was about the individual. And for me, I just felt like there was something missing. And even though I was ticking all of these boxes, I didn't feel fulfilled. I didn't feel connected in the way that I wanted to be. And I was aware that unless I did something different, I wouldn't get clarity or I wouldn't figure it out. So anyway, I had another one of these sleepless nights, Harry, and I wrote down all this stuff, and I woke up with a notebook full of, nocturnal ramblings. And I went to work, and my then PA, I said to her, I'm going to go away for a week and a half. And she looked at me like, I'd just told her the worst thing ever. And because I never went away, because I was a workaholic. And she's like, are you all right? I said, yeah, I'm all right. I need to remove myself practically and geographically and sociologically and emotionally. I need to remove myself from the day-to-day maniacal schedule that I inhabit, and just to get some still and some quiet and some space. So I went to Queensland by myself for 10 days. I didn't have one meaningful conversation I didn't talk to anyone that I knew back in Melbourne. I didn't have a conversation with anyone, and my instructions to my team were, don't call me unless it's an absolute emergency. So I didn't get a phone call. So I was by myself for 10 days, and I think I was around 35, and I literally went away to get clarity and perspective about what I wanted the rest of my life to look like. And it wasn't that my life was bad, and it wasn't that I was ungrateful. I was very grateful. I knew that my life situation was great. And that was the curiosity. It's like, my life situation is great, but I'm not great. What is that about? And I decided that I just needed to think deeply and without influence. And I journaled. I was staying on the water. I swam in the ocean every day. I lifted a few weights. I walked countless miles in bare feet on the sand, which sounds all very romantic and philosophical, but I did. I remember the first few days being extremely anxious and uncomfortable because I was addicted to busyness. I loved wearing the busy badge. It's like a badge of honor, how busy I am. When people go, how are you? You don't actually say how you are. You just go, I'm busy. Oh, busy, mate, busy. It's like, and busy's like a badge. And then over the course of 10 days, I went through all these emotional peaks and troughs, and the not so quick story is I came back, I sold all of my businesses, except one. I kept my biggest gym, which was a 10,000 square foot facility on Nepean Highway in Brighton. I brought in a manager. I trained him up. And I went to university for the first time in my life at 36. I realized that I wanted to be more of a teacher and a mentor and a speaker and an author. And, even though I could do business and I could run businesses and lead teams and develop and be entrepreneurial, even though I could do that, I didn't think it was my purpose. And again, for me, I had the luxury of being able to have that flexibility because I didn't have a wife or kids. So, that's what I did. I literally put a pin in it, as you say, at about 35, 6 and reinvented myself and went, so I kept that gym for another 10 or 12 years after that. But yeah, I kind of extricated myself from the immediacy. I still help people, and I still work in that space periodically of physiology and fitness and high performance. But yeah, I stepped away from that and I started heading down a more academic, educational, scientific, and philosophical route of, you know, being more interested in the human in the body than the body that envelops the human. So I started off with biology and ended up in psychology.
When you went away for that week and a half, you said, only call me if it's an absolute emergency.
Yeah.
Did anyone call you?
No.
Any absolute emergencies?
No.
The business kept running?
Yeah, wheels didn't fall off, and that's a very good point that you raise. You know, it's like, yeah, shit doesn't break. It's like a lot of my problems were self-created, and that, you know, we spend so much of our, and I'm saying the global we, this might not be a particular individual listening, but as a group, we tend to spend so much of our emotional and psychological and even physical energy in the past that we can't change or in the future that doesn't yet exist. And we spend some of our lifetime energy, you know, creating or obsessing about or ruminating on potential problems that for the most part never happen, while all the time not actually being in this moment, not being in today, not being in right now.
You've reminded me of one of my favorite past guests. His name's Raj Shankara. He was a monk at a monastery in Hawaii for 12 years, and he's back in the world now. He works in wealth management, everything, but here with a wife and kids and all that jazz. He taught his biggest thing in life is just about energy management. Energy management. Where are you dedicating your energy?
100%.
Where are you putting your energy today?
What am I focusing on? Yeah. Because whatever I'm focusing on, it has me. I don't have it.
There you go. So in that time, you didn't end up having a wife and kids and that kind of stuff up until 35 or so. Was that something you wanted? Like, was it something you wanted and you just thought it was a distraction? Or was it something you're like, that's just not important for me?
Yeah, no, probably neither. I mean, I, like everybody else, especially children of the 60s, we grew up kind of in the, well, you'd probably be married by the time you're 30, and if you're not, you're probably something wrong with you. And you're probably going to have one or two kids by then. And, you know, in general, you're probably going to overall have 3 or 4, and you'll probably have a house and a station wagon, maybe a golden retriever, and you'll probably have 4 weeks holiday a year and all that stuff. And none of that is bad. But I realised really early that for me, a couple of things. One, I didn't like having a boss. It wasn't that I didn't like work. I just didn't like having a boss because I wanted to dance to my own tune. Like, I wanted to create my own thing. And I'm definitely not against, you know, typical traditional work roles. But it just it wasn't optimal for me. So by the time I was 21 or 2, I was thinking about how do I build a professional life for me that doesn't require me to be an employee of someone else. And so that, as I said, that kind of started at 23, training people in other people's gyms, and then came to life as a real thing in 1986 when I set up my first thing. And so 38 years ago was the last time I had a boss, right? So it's been 38 years of making stuff up. And so too with, you know, learning and failing and falling down and getting up and developing skills and awareness and competence. But, you know, a lot of trial and error, and more error than success in many instances. And so too with relationships. Like, I never intended to not get married. It was not a plan at all. I just didn't get married, you know, and it's just like I never had a point, you know, and people think, oh, because you're unmarried, you must be anti-marriage. No, definitely not anti-marriage. Most of my friends are married, I think, but I think when you see marriage as the answer to some kind of problem, then that's probably not a great perspective. But in terms of, you know, just being with someone, being married, being connected, whether it's being married, or being in a partnership or whatever it is, I think for many people, that's a much better option than being single. And again, there are so many variables around it. It's like you can be happily single or miserably single. You can be happily married or miserably married. So I don't know that being with someone or not being someone is the make or break. But yep, no. Ended up never getting married. You know, lots of relationships along the way, and you know, here I am.
Do you feel that's enhanced your life or subtracted, or it's just been what it's been?
Yeah, I don't really think like that, but that's a good question. I mean, a lot of it's amazing how many people feel strongly and feel, you not included, but compelled to give me feedback that I didn't ask for. And I literally a lady was talking to me in the cafe a few weeks ago, and she essentially said, you're missing out, and which may or may not be true, but like she was asking me about this very thing, and I said, well, look, to be honest, I'm doing full-time work, full-time PhD. I record 7 of my own podcasts a week. I'm on other people's podcasts. I have a good social life. I train with, my mate every day, 7 days a week in the gym. I've got a great team of people who work with me, and for the most part, I am maybe the happiest I've ever been in my life. Like the anxiety, all of that stuff is gone. Doesn't mean I never have a bad day, of course, and she said, you just tell yourself that. She goes, you think you're happy, but you're not. I'm like, wow. Like what? And I wasn't offended by that. I'm just curious that someone that I don't know would tell me that she knows more about me than I know about me, and that I'm somewhat deluded. And I'm just saying that. And I'm like, yeah, it's a really interesting thing, and it's very atypical, and I get it. And, to be the 60-year-old dude who's never been drunk, never been high, never been married, and, it's like, it's not good or bad. It's just probably not that common.
Yeah. No, I get it. I mean, you've had plenty of adversity, and I suspect it's adversity and being responsible to others that leads to most of our growth. Michael Ray, who introduced us, is an exceptional example of that, right?
Yeah.
Becoming a solo dad, like a blokey bloke, similar to you, fitness and training and bouncing and working as a bouncer and security and all that jazz. And then at 51 years old, becoming a solo dad with a 2-year-old daughter who you had no idea how to raise. Yeah. Like it's the external pressure and the responsibility he had to that is what led to a lot of his growth and defined his path. But it sounds like you've created that pressure rather than needing to have it forced on you through marriage.
Yeah, I mean, I think being able to lean into the pain is actually fucking great. We don't want to be in constant pain or discomfort or uncertainty or fear, of course, but there's something to be said for being able to roll up your sleeves and say, this is going to suck, or this thing that I need to do will be hard, or perhaps slow or somewhat painful, but that's okay. When you think about from a physiology point of view, you think, well, how do I build strength? Oh, well, what you do is this thing called progressive resistance overload. Oh, what does that mean? Well, it means you go into a gym and you lift a weight or any training environment and push something or pull something, work against some kind of resistance, and you'll find it hard, and then you come back tomorrow, the next day, and you do similar, and then over time that 5 kilo dumbbell is not heavy anymore, and now you do the 7, and the 7's now easier than the 5 was, and then eventually you do the 20, and like all the weights are the same, but you've changed. So your experience of the weight is now different because you are now strong. You were weak. You implemented this intervention, you used these tools to build strength, and now you are strong. So when you now have to lift a weight, be that a literal weight or a metaphoric weight, you are now capable because you did a hard thing and kept doing a hard thing. And then when we extrapolate that physiological example to psychology or emotion, one of the questions that I've been asked at least 1,000 times over the last 30 years is, how do I overcome my fear of public speaking? And the answer is by public speaking. You can't get good at the thing that you won't do. You can't master the thing that you avoid. You can't build skill, competence, awareness, understanding, resilience by sitting on the couch and avoiding something that you need to do to progress. So, I think the funny thing is, we simultaneously want 2 things. We want to be a better version of us, fitter, stronger, leaner, healthier, more productive, more effective, calmer, whatever it is. Most people want some kind of positive change in their life in some area. But simultaneously, most people are driven by a desire to be safe and convenient and comfortable. And those things don't go together. Like, we need to be able to say, I'm going to do something hard by choice. And the outcome is that I will build whatever, skill, competence, awareness, resilience. Like, we talk about resilience all the time now. Resilience, resilience, resilience. But at the same time, most people are doing the things that will make them weaker, not stronger. That is, we're taking the easy path. We're taking, the wide path. We want to get in shape, but we don't want to work to get in shape. We want to build a business, but we want it to happen in 3 weeks. It comes back again, the full circle to this. I want success now, instant gratification. And the truth is, success, growth, learning, development, sometimes it's just a fucking long, slow, uncomfortable, messy, inconvenient process. But the end, like the development, the growth, the learning that happens in the middle of it, that's what's setting you up for success. Is how do I need to be so that I can self-manage and self-regulate? How can I be the calm in the chaos? How can I achieve that state of equanimity, that kind of Eastern philosophical construct of being, in the middle of this state where the world around me, situation, circumstance, environment, other people is somewhat chaotic, but I am not chaotic. That's a state worth training yourself for.
So the person who's listening to this and screaming at you now through right into their Spotify or YouTube, and they're going, but come on, Craig, you can't just live your whole life just being miserable and uncomfortable and just going through the hard slog so that you're going to be fine in the end. I might get hit by a bus today or tomorrow. I might end up being diagnosed with cancer, and I've wasted my whole life just trying to work up to what would be the end, and I never even get there. What's your response in this imaginary conversation with this listener?
No, that's a really good question and really valid. So I would never suggest that all day, every day has got to be painful. So one of the things that I do every day, which is good for me, that I do not like, I do not enjoy, but it is good for me. It has physical, mental, emotional, cognitive benefits. Is the end of my shower is completely cold for 1 minute. So it's, there's 1,440 minutes in a day, and for one of those 1,440 minutes, I'm standing in freezing cold water. I go, cool. So that's an example. I'm not saying life has got to be pain. I still get great pleasure from food. I just eat food that works for me. I love my breakfast. I love my dinner. I don't eat lunch. I have 2 meals a day. I love working out. I love talking shit with my friends, my mates, my training partners. I love laughing. I love movies. I love silly things. But I also know that there are times when I need to choose discomfort, because discomfort is what's required for me to create the outcome I want to create. Like I have a podcast that ranks in the top few in I'm on the Nova platform, doesn't matter. But anyway, it goes really well. But the bottom line is I did 3 podcasts before that podcast that didn't work. I did 3 different shows that didn't work over 2 years. I probably did about 300, 400 episodes that didn't work. And then I started my podcast, and that didn't work, in that we were making no dough. And I was getting good listeners, making no dough. No, not that it's all about that, but for me, it's part of my business. It's a commercial thing as well as a let's try and help a few people thing. And it took me 500 episodes of the U Project, along with 300 or 400 episodes of other shows, before I made $1. Before I made $1, right? Now, that was about 5 years of pain. I built a studio downstairs. I'm in my office at the moment, but I built a studio downstairs, which cost me the best part of $50,000. I made no money back on that, and so it's not anti-great. It's like, well, I had to deal with a lot of shit and a lot of not winning and not succeeding and falling down for a long time to develop an understanding of how podcasting works, how to make some money, how to develop a model that's going to work, how do I pay the people that work with me, that edit it, that do all of these things. And so, it was a 5-year apprenticeship that was not much fun. But the end result, for me anyway, was, we created something that we're now nearly 1,500 episodes in. And again, I'm not brilliant. I'm not a genius. I'm just not giving up.
There's still that element of just not giving up. You had this what you said was 5 years of basically falling down and effectively pain and discomfort, and you've got amazing results as from doing all that, right?
Mm.
Which I'd imagine that you wouldn't have continued if it was just pain. And I'm not talking about in your life, right? Like you can
Sure.
put in pain in one particular, like you can experience pain in one thing, and you're like, that's my 9 to 5, and then afterwards I clock off and I can have some fun.
Sure.
But I'm getting the sense from you that you found joy in that experience of falling down and struggling and getting frustrated throughout the whole time. Like there was something within that was giving you a sense of satisfaction and giving you a sense of what we were referring to before, like a internal or within success rather than without success.
Yeah. That is a great question. Very, very good question. And you're exactly right. So if we go back full circle to the initial question, what is success? So if we were talking about, because one of the reasons I set it up was so that I could have great conversations with great people, I could learn, but also it could be part of the business and it could be a commercially viable thing. So from a professional point of view, you could definitely say, well, it was a failure for a long time because it just was. It's just a matter of numbers. But that is a good insight because on the other side of making no money and me going backwards, fortunately, I did other things that were working and could support the show and could support the lack of income. But on a personal level, yeah, I learned a lot. So I developed insight awareness, understanding skills, patience. And so if we could say at the same time it was both a success and a failure, it depends on which aspect we're looking at. So that is a very insightful and I think that is a great way for all of us to try to open the door on reframing. What if we looked at it? Yeah. Oh, well, you made no money for 5 years and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, but did you learn anything? Yeah. Well, that's good, right? Yeah. Did you develop skills? Yeah. Did you talk to some really cool people? Yeah, I did that. So yeah, kind of a success. Like it depends where we're standing. So yeah, I like that question.
Can I also just pick on a bit of language which you just used, and you were talking about whether or not it was a success.
Yeah.
Can we explore that, the difference between it being like the podcasting projects, yes, failures, whatever, it being successful? Was it the professional life? Is that the it? Was it your experience of life? Is that the it? Was it you and who Craig Harper is? Is that the it? What was the it that you were referencing to then?
Okay, so I think there are two it's. I think there's the it that is the commercial entity that we're trying to breathe life into to get a toehold in the podcast landscape, that we will get a partnership with someone like Nova, which I ended up doing, Nova Entertainment, and getting sponsors on board. So there's that it, which is the commercial entity. And then there's the it, which is really a vehicle for me, or a platform for me to learn and to have fun and to connect. By the way, I didn't, in the middle of all of the making no money, I wasn't miserable or sad. I had a lot of really good experiences and met good people, and learned a lot. So, it depends on, again, and this is why success is a slippery construct. For some people, running a marathon in 4 hours is the best thing they've ever done. For someone else, the same distance at the same speed at 4 hours or the same time is incredibly disappointing, because it's not about the distance or the time, it's about what that represents to you. So what that represented to me on a personal level, those first episodes, was just an opportunity to develop and learn. So even though from a commercial perspective we could call it a failure, if the intention was financial success, then yes, it wasn't that. But in many ways, there were many positives. And I think that's the whole thing in many ways, is being prepared to just go, well, this might not be the outcome I want, but it's still an experience nonetheless.
Okay. So there's this element of success that you're talking about, which is kind of falling in love with the experience and being able to find joy in the experience, regardless of whether you're actually achieving the outcomes that you set out to do. Because it's almost as if one of the outcomes you have is wanting to experience success rather than just the outcome of whatever I'm doing. So experience success through what I do rather than be successful at what I do.
Yeah. Or and also both though. You know, it's like I'm doing a PhD. I'm in my on the home straight. I'm in my fifth year, and I hope at the end of the year that they're going to go, here you are, Dr. Harps, boom, right? So I don't want to do this and not get there, right? It's not like I'm not just doing it because it's fun. I also want to achieve that academic milestone, but that doesn't define me. That's not who I am. You know, that's just one of many things that I'm doing and have done in my life that for me is a challenge. I'm very interested in, it's going to sound quite a departure, but I'm very interested in human optimization from 50 onwards. And how do I stay physically, mentally, emotionally, cognitively in the high performance space? And by high performance, I mean relative. You know, so, you know, like I said, I'm 60. I was born in 1963. I'm 61 later in the year. But I don't smoke and I don't drink and I don't do drugs and I sleep great and I don't get stressed very often and I have great connection and I have a healthy lifestyle and I'm loved and I give love and I have purpose. And when you put all those things together and I keep learning and I put myself in growth situations, when you put all that together, hopefully that creates some kind of real world result, which is you being, you know, biologically younger than your chronological age, which I am, and hopefully cognitively as good or better perhaps than when you were 40 or 30. And so for me, being a lifelong learner and doing things and, you know, sitting with you for an hour and a half and answering what can be not tricky, but interesting questions where I've got to be fully present, fully aware, fully invested in you for this time, not thinking about other things and being able to navigate, you know, all kinds of situations in life without, you know, going on what is often almost like the predetermined cognitive, emotional, physiological slide. Oh, well, you know, you're this old or you're that old, it's time to wind down or it's time to, you know. So I'm very interested in, you know, doing stuff that, and not just for me, but 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, but obviously as someone who's a bit older, you know, starting a PhD when you're 56 is, for many people, that's ridiculous. And also, why are you doing it? You don't need to do it. I'm doing it because I want to do it. And I'm doing it for a range of reasons, you know, so... And I'm not going to be an academic when I finish. I'm not going to go and pursue an academic route. I'm just going to use my knowledge and the research that I'm doing to, you know, kind of support what I'm already doing.
There's something interesting in that. There's what, like we've spoken a bit about what you want versus kind of what you can ignore or push away, which is kind of alluding to what you want versus what you don't want. And now you're talking about what you want versus what you need. And I'm just curious how those things of want, don't want, need, don't need, how those few things kind of piece together into how you're living the best or the most successful version of you.
So many people want to be in shape, fit, strong, healthy, lean, functional, not talking about appearance. So many people want to be a different version of themselves right now. They want to be those things, fitter, stronger, healthier, all of that stuff, more functional. But at the same time, so many people don't want to do the work. Like, this is the problem. Like, I want that outcome, but I don't want to take that journey, which is why quick fixes and magic pills and instant gratification and silver bullets sell like hotcakes. There's a whole lot of metaphors. But because the price that I need to pay to create the outcome I want to create it's too much, or for me, it's too much. You know, I had a guy come up to me last week. I did a corporate gig, and at the end of the corporate gig, and I've had this happen many times, he was quite a bit younger than me, but he was about, I don't know, early 40s maybe. And not in good shape by his own admission. And he goes, he goes, can I just ask you about what you do? Like, he wanted to know about how I eat. So what my diet is, what I typically eat, how often I work out, what I do. He goes, just tell me what you do, because I'm going to do that. And I told him what I do. And at the end, he goes, oh, fuck it, I don't want it that much. Right? Because he liked the idea of being fit, strong, lean, functional, but he didn't want to do what was required to create that outcome. So there's the thing you want, and then there's the thing you need to do to create that outcome. You know, and, you know, a lot of people want a successful business or a successful podcast or a successful career or whatever it is. And all of those things are normal. But yeah, everything comes at a cost. You know, if you want to buy a car, there's a cost. If you want a new pair of shoes, there's a cost. If you want to do an undergrad degree in education, there's a cost. If you want to write a book, there's a cost. If you want to set up a not-for-profit, there's a cost. Like, there's work, there's discipline, there's self-control, there's a bit of sacrifice and effort and pain. Like, there's all this shit that comes to build the thing that you want. Like, if it was easy to be fit, strong, lean, functional, everybody would already be that. Right? But the truth is, you know, for a lot of people, it kind of sucks.
If it was easy to do it, if it was easy to do it and everyone already did it, then it wouldn't even be something that people would really work towards and get it, right? Like eyesight. Oh, most people can see. The vast majority of people have sight. They can see. It's not something that they're striving towards because, of course, they want it. Have you seen how serious parents get about making sure their kids can walk? And throughout that whole time, they forget, like, they want their kid to walk even just a month earlier. Might mean that they're gifted or whatever. I can't have my kid not walking. They're going to keep working at it and make sure their kids can walk. But I mean, the truth is that almost every kid walks, even those who don't have mums and dads who love them. They still end up walking, right? It's just a basic that we expect for everyone who's able-bodied to be able to do. But yeah, there's this, people don't want the results. I remember chatting with a mate of mine who's a personal trainer, and he had this guy he had this client say, you know what, I've been listening to a whole lot of David Goggins. I want you to be David Goggins for me right now. And I want you to be David Goggins in this session. And so he goes all David Goggins on it. Who's going to go? Like that kind of stuff, like shouting right at him, and everything is like, whoa, this is just too much. I don't want it that much. The element of this is finding the goals or finding the outcomes that you really do want enough to be able to endure the hardships to be able to get there, like endure the pain and lean into the discomfort in order to get there. And how much of it is just building up your own, I'm not sure if it's strength or resilience to be able to get to an outcome that you set for yourself. Like, is it about identifying the goal, or is it about identifying the path that you're willing to take? Or is it both?
I think it's both. It's like, what's the thing that you want? You know, it's like a formula. What do you want? Why do you want it? What's the cost? And then what's your plan? So it's 4 things. What's the thing that you want? Why do you want that thing? What's required of you? What's the cost? What's required of you to be able to make that idea in your head a reality in the world? So that theoretical something, a practical experience. And then number 4 is, what's your plan? You know, create a plan X. What do you want? Create a plan, execute the plan. Don't overthink it. Don't underdo it. Don't look for a cheer squad. Don't look for accolades. Don't be a big baby. You know, it's like, I'm not trying to be harsh, but it's just true. So many people start things that they don't finish. And so many people are brilliant and gifted and talented, Harry, but they just waste what they have. I've worked with I've employed people that were way more talented than me and smarter than me and better genetics than me. And some of them went on and did awesome stuff, but some of them, like, what let them down was not their capacity for excellence or success, but rather their thinking. You know, like everything is too hard. It's like there's this idea in exercise science called perceived rate of exertion, PRE, and basically it means it's your story about how hard you're working, right? And you probably know this already, but for your listeners, you know, and it's so like when somebody's doing an exercise, me as a trainer or exercise scientist, I might say to them, you know, 1 to 10, 10 is your physical, your human limit, like you could not do any more or harder. This is maximal intensity for you. What's your number? And then people give a number and invariably they say, 8 or 9. When when really they're closer to a 4 or 5. So there's a big difference between what we think is hard and what is actually really hard, at times anyway. And many times over the years, somebody's given me the 8 to 9, and I go, and I understand it, and I say, all right, this is what I want you to do. We're going to take a break. And I could give you countless stories of where, like, for example, I've got a guy who's doing a lat pull down. It's 120 pounds, or let's say 55 kilos, and he does 12 reps, and I say, and he puts it down at 12, and I know he's got another 10 left, but he puts it down like it's the heaviest thing in the world. And I go, what's your number? And he goes, oh, mate, 9. I'm done. Maybe I could get one more, but I said, all right. Then I have a chat to him for about 2 minutes, and I talk to him about, perception versus reality. I talk to him about the role that the mind plays. I talk to him about pain. I talk to him about what's happening in his nervous system. And I say to him a version of this. Okay, so we're going to do the same weight. I want you to do something that's un-you. I want you to get out of the fear and the overthinking and the stories and the bullshit. I want you to do as many reps as you can. Don't overthink it, go. And so many times that dude who said when he did 12 reps on 55 kilos, that was 9 out of 10. That dude or that lady, whatever the weight, whatever the exercise, they will then do sometimes 50 reps. 50, right? And that capacity, and I'm not saying we should all work at our threshold. I'm saying we need to check our stories. Because often when we think we're going real hard, we're not going real hard. We're going first world real hard. Come on, bro. It's like, and it's not to discourage or dissuade anyone, but at the same time, the reason that I'm so much like this is because I have great faith in people's potential and capacity, but not so much faith in their thinking about it. And if we can get our mind out of the way quite often, then our body and our talent and our skill and our potential can do some amazing shit.
You gave one really cool resource then as to how you can do it, right? You're up against something really hard. It doesn't matter if it's weights or a boxing bag or if it's literally anything else. Something in a project you're working on, or a conversation with your boss, or a presentation to new clients or to the executive team, or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. You've given this, you've explained one approach that you can take. You can say, if you weren't you right now, if you were just out of all of your fears and all the bullshit, all the stories and everything which is holding you back, just go and just keep going at it. Like, just literally be exactly how you want to be, rather than just limiting yourself to your current story, and just go all out and then just prove to yourself that you can do it. Like, that's one really cool strategy. What's another strategy when people aren't living up to or when people are struggling to expand beyond their stories? What's another strategy or two that they can take?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of stuff, but I would say to people, in terms of what you want to do, be, create and change on planet You. I'll say that again. In terms of what you want to do, create and change on planet You. What are your non-negotiables? What are your non-negotiables for you? Absolutes. Not the thing that I do when I'm in the zone or motivated. Not the thing that I do when Harry's cheering me on and I've got a fucking support crew and I'm getting a trophy for getting out of bed or eating a salad. Just what's the thing that for me is non-negotiable? This is part of my normal operating system now. This is something that, see, when we get really clear and specific about what are the things that are non-negotiable, then we're either going to do them or not. And then you got to, if you don't do them, well, then you just got to acknowledge that. You don't have to beat yourself up, but, so I think we need to be somewhat strategic about how we self-manage and self-regulate. Literally why I called my show the You Project, because it's like the biggest project I'm ever going to have is me. The biggest project in your life you'll ever have is you, managing your mind, time, energy, skills, potential, psychology, physiology, emotions. Trying to manage you is the ever-present project. Doesn't mean that there aren't other projects or important things, of course. But that, and then stepping back and asking a couple of really broadly relevant questions, like, I chatted to also a guy yesterday, and we were going just round in circles a bit. And I said, all right, let's hit the brakes. So don't overthink this, and just don't try to be too smart or clever or bullshitty or philosophical. Tell me what's not working in your life. Just what's not working. And he goes, oh, well, give me an example. I go, well, the way that you eat, is that working? And he goes, no. I go, cool. What else? And then he goes, oh. And then he went, well, my job. I go, cool. So we're right, And then again, not self-loathing, just self-awareness. And then I go, cool. Tell me about your job. What's not working? Cool. Okay, so let's acknowledge what's not working. Let's figure out what we might do. So, like, nobody wants a bad life. Everyone wants a good life. Cool. What does that mean? What does a good life mean for you? What does that look like? If you close your eyes and you visualize yourself in the good life, what's happening in the good life? What's the gap between your current life and the good life? What are the things you need to do less of and more of? What are the things that you currently do that are working well, and the things that you currently do that aren't working well? Like, it doesn't need to be high level kind of psychology. Are you eating too much food? Yes, I am. Cool. Here's an idea. Eat less. Like, it doesn't need to be. We don't need to do a deep dive in the cellular physiology of the endocrine system and the nervous system and the digestive system to understand. We just go, oh, all right, well, probably McDonald's 4 times a week, not ideal. What do you think? Yeah. And booze every night, also not ideal. Cool. Well, let's just start with something simple. Can you do booze 3 nights, not 7? Yes, I can. Well done. Let's start there. Like, it doesn't need to be groundbreaking shit.
I just want to kind of feed back the key message, which I've heard from you in this conversation, and then you can expand a little bit on it or give some feedback around it. And if we have time, we can go back and we can talk about this idea of how you interact with others based on how they're perceiving you rather than how you're perceiving yourself in the situation. But the key message I've heard from you in this whole time is that when we're talking about success or talking about a life well lived, we're not talking about the life where you're just happy all the time. And we're not talking about the life where you get all the things that you think that are going to be making you happy. It's about the experience of life you have in the pursuit of obtaining or of achieving those particular levels. Because through the pursuit, you're actually you're challenging yourself a whole lot more than you otherwise would, and that challenge allows you to basically face more resistance. The more that you deal with resistance and push through resistance, or just like the more you're going to lift the weights, the stronger you're going to get. And you're not going to get better at any of those things or at anything in your life unless you do more of it. And that doesn't matter if it's sitting down with your eyes closed and doing meditation, or if you're lifting up weights, or if you're going for runs, or if you're building businesses. You're not going to get better at it by just doing the theory, or just thinking about the theory, or just thinking about maybe if only I would do this, then I'd be really successful. That's not what's going to make you any version of success. And you can have all those things. You can have the fame, you can have the money, you can have the people talking about how much they love you and how amazing you are, and that's not necessarily what's going to make you feel good, because you could still feel shit and you have anxiety, and you could be on antidepressants, and you could be suicidal as well at the same time, regardless of it. It's about what you're able to put into life in terms of what you're going to be able to receive from it. And so this, throughout our whole conversation of from where you grew up and eating disorders and going through to changing your body and then becoming overly obsessed with what your body looks like and how you're perceived and how much people like you, to building up these businesses, to realizing that you're a workaholic and that life's just shit because you're waking up at night to try and basically you're journaling at night and never sleeping because you're trying to journal just to get the thoughts out of your head so you could sleep. All you were doing was just ending up waking up with pages of notes and getting away from it all to then just realize, okay, what do I actually want right now? And what am I actually working towards? How can I create less problems in my life and work towards creating more resistance that I can push through? And then that's gotten you to where you are now of you're doing a lot of academics, not to become an academic, but just as a way to challenge yourself and to be able to grow. You're engaging with all these people to build up a podcast, commercial interests, and you've got clients and everything, but you're not doing it for that. You're doing it so that you can grow, so that you have something you can challenge yourself with even to the extent that when most people around your age are starting to say, I think it's time to slow down a little bit and just take it a little bit easy, and it's time to wind down and go on cruises instead of anything else. How can I take this to the next level and then help other people do it as well? This is where I've got to put the effort in. And so the whole arc of your life and the whole arc of your stories is what you've shared on so far in the last 95 minutes have been focused on this idea of focusing on your inner experience and utilizing that inner experience, also telling you, you're having the self-awareness of knowing when you're running away from something because it's painful, and then leaning into it because it's you learn from the discomfort and you go through the discomfort to be able to just simply use that as the gauge of where you've got to go. And knowing when I don't want something because I'm scared of it or because it's too hard, because I don't know, whatever, versus I don't want something because it actually doesn't align with me. And then knowing where your values lie, and then knowing what you actually want in life, and then you're able to move towards what's really scary for you, or what seems most challenging and what seems most difficult. And then that's the way that you're going to grow, and you're going to continue to improve to live a better life. And the better life that you're living is not the outcome that you get to, but it's as a result of how much you're growing in every moment in order to get there.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good synopsis. I mean, here's the thing. I'm wildly flawed. So, I'm a regular. I'm not gifted, not special. And so I think one of the reasons some people relate to me is because I'm a bit like them, not necessarily special or super smart or genetically gifted, but trying to, I'm always thinking about human performance and human potential, but I'm also thinking about, and I have an awareness around, how can I be of value to others? How can I be, for me, I have to have a purpose bigger than me, and on the show called Success with Purpose. So for me, if my journey is all about my happiness and my box ticking, and I tried that. When I was young, I was probably quite self-absorbed in that, it was all about hitting KPIs and building brand and building business, and nothing wrong with that. But even when I got successful, it was all about me. And I noticed the times where I feel the most joy, the most connection, I don't know, the most fulfillment maybe, is when I'm actually connecting with others, helping others. And like even now, and I don't say this to sound good or bad, and I don't say this very often on a podcast, but about 40% of the work that I do not get paid for. The work that I get paid for, I get paid great. But like I'm doing a gig tonight, I'm doing a speaking engagement tonight for a friend who's, doesn't matter what they're doing, but it's a good thing that they're doing. So I'm taking 4 hours out of my night. I'm driving an hour each way. I'm presenting. And it's not because I'm great or special. It's because I have an ability and a skill and the time to be able to do something good for them. I don't want anything in return. I don't want anything. I don't want any money. I don't want any accolades. And, all of that. I stopped coaching people for money 5 years ago. And the hourly rate 5 years ago was high. And I only see people now for free. Obviously I can't see everyone, so this is not an invitation, but I generally see.
And Craig Harper on LinkedIn and send him a message. He'll coach you for free. This is how this works.
But I got to the point, Harry, where I went, you know what? Like without trying to sound like I could do one speaking gig a week and my life is great. Like I don't need any more money, right? I don't have a wife and kids. I live a really simple life. I don't need lots of money. So money for me is not a big driver. It's a factor, but it doesn't, I don't, and I'm lucky that I don't need to, I acknowledge that, but I don't think a lot about making lots of money at all. I think more, I have a business partner, Melissa, who's 35 and amazing. I think about money more from her perspective, like her building wealth, her assets, her portfolio, all of that kind of stuff, right? But for me, I think it's about building that internal bank balance, Some people might call it that spiritual bank balance. That's for another day, though.
That's another can of worms. Thank you, Craig. You've shared a hell of a lot on here and a lot of value for our listeners. So I really appreciate the conversation. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me, and congratulations on the show. You're doing a great job, and shout out to your listeners. Now all you got to do is go and do something with it.
So I hope you received a whole lot of value from engaging in that conversation. What were the key takeaways for you? What can you schedule in your life right now to make sure that the time you just invested into listening to this exceptional conversation with this amazing mentor and this amazing individual is time that wasn't misused, but was time that you've allocated properly to enhancing your life and improving it? Whatever it is, schedule it now, practice it now, be the successful person you're meant to be, live with purpose.